Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of In My Opinion. My name is John.
My name is Celeste.
Yes, and we got a very special guest with us.
And my name is Marc.
Marc, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure thing. I'm currently working with BTS Consulting. Not quite the Korean boy band, but we're a training consultancy. I should do a rendition of Dynamite, right?
You guys should just do it like as your marketing pitch or something.
Yes.
Just start with it.
Absolutely. You know, to all the BTS fans out there, I'm so sorry. This is the different kind of BTS that we're talking about. Okay, so just a few updates before we go into today's episode proper. So remember to follow us on Instagram, imo.pod. And you always talk about the Nintendo Switch dock, right? It's not really a dock. It's a notice board now. So you can check out imo.pod, our Instagram. And below that, you'll notice just us.space, right? This is the website that actually Marc will be sharing a little bit more about today. Any more, we'll leave the links in the socials below. And as you all can see from today's title, we'll be talking about some positive stuff.
Yeah, I think it's cool to like talk a little bit about the website first. I think the website is basically this mental health experience. It's kind of like a play, but not really. It's online. It's a little bit more interactive. You get to find out many things about mental health. And I personally went through the whole thing myself.
Right.
So I found it very interesting. I found the helpful guides very interesting. And there are also like a whole bunch of resources about how to be more mentally healthy.
Right.
And part of the reason why we have Marc here is because he's a positive psychologist, or rather by practice all this. And he actually helped a little bit in the resource part of it, and like how to be like a bit more mentally well.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the big misconceptions we want to try to like counter or go against is that mental health help is meant for the people who are only mentally ill.
Yeah.
And positive psychology, the whole foundation of it is that mental wellness is for everyone, and that there's always a way to improve yourself and improve your mental well-being. So if you want, even if you are not personally suffering from mental illness or mental health problems, you should definitely check out the website, check out the resources, and give this podcast a listen. Since you're here already, myself, don't click away.
And we got all three demographics for you today. So whoever you are, we have catered for you: psychologist, psych student, and person on the street.
He's gonna be representing you guys for today.
Yeah, I would just know the definition of some of these words, but I don't really know what's going on. But I will tell you what's up.
Yes. So today's topic is, as what we say, building resilience. And it might sound a little bit cliche. It might sound like you're going to be listening to Gary Vaynerchuk talking about how to go through life.
Oh, Gary.
Yeah, Gary V.
I only know Gary Oak from Pokemon.
Of course, because you're the layman. but like I think as psychologists, I think we're starting to crack a little bit more into like the science behind resilience, or like what are the specific things to do behind resilience, or try to accumulate resilience, I guess, if you can accumulate it. So why don't we start with like a rough definition of resilience from a psychologist's point of view?
Right. So many researchers have been looking into the definition, and one of it is about the positive adaptation to going through a significant adversity, or a risk period.
Which is basically, in layman terms, you have went through some nonsense and you come out better.
Exactly.
So even more layman, is you tahan. Tahan already, right? Then you turn around, become more better.
You have the ability to tahan, basically. That's like the as layman as it gets. So I mean, the reason why I had him decide to do this episode was also because I'm in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Shit is tough. Things are going through the roof right now. So I think resilience is something that we sorely need. So he's going to help give us some tips. So you have like a few tips why don't we go one by one? What's your first like major tip that you will give that's like a bit more practical for the people at home?
Right. So I think when we talk about resilience, one of the biggest frameworks that we can think about are the ABCs of resilience. So the ABCs are the adversity. So what you're going through, the really shitty time or the tough times that you're going through, and that's like triggering you. That makes you feel like, it's tough.
Yeah.
Then after that, you look at the B, which is your belief. And what do you believe about this particular event that's happening?
Yeah.
And then there's the C, the consequences. Right. Or what do you experience? What's the impact to you in terms of the feelings? And then the actions that you want to take thereafter. Okay. So let me break it down and how we normally go through this in an example.
Yeah. Okay. Of course.
For example, an adversity. I lost my job. Right. So that's a triggering event. That's the adversity, the tough time that you're going through. Usually we jump straight to the C. And the consequence is you're really depressed and sad because you've lost your job. You start worrying, panicking, and like, how do you then keep your family afloat, for example?
Yeah.
So that's the consequence. But what we forget is the B that's intervening, which is the beliefs around it.
Okay.
So, for example, if I broke down the beliefs, so I've lost my job, I'm feeling really worried. In my head, I'm telling myself I'll never be able to get a job again.
So it's like the reason why we think the consequence is as is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Even I didn't know that. Okay. That makes sense because like the consequence, whatever happens is, I guess from a psychology point of view, as I said, is like, as I said before, I don't think there's an objective truth, just how you perceive it. So it's the appraisal of the objective truth that is the problem.
So what I'm seeing here is that like we use the example of having lost a job, right? And then the consequence is that, I'm feeling really depressed, right? But a lot of times we didn't stop to question why.
Yeah.
Right? We think the why is because I lost a job.
Yeah.
But clearly the loss of a job is not the real reason. Sort of not the real reason, it's just the event.
Correct.
But the way we appraise the event is as such. Okay, so do you want to try an example?
Okay.
Or some shitty thing that has happened to you recently?
Right. Okay, let's just think of something more relevant to the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So I test positive for COVID-19.
He hasn't just
I haven't. Example, I quote test positive for COVID-19.
Yeah.
And then as a consequence, I feel really worried for my life.
Yeah.
Right? The belief, I guess, would be that I will succumb to this disease.
Or like your family will.
Or my family cannot continue to progress without me.
Yeah.
Okay, so why is the reason, why do we have to break this down actually?
Why do you break it down?
Yeah.
Then that helps you understand how you can control or try to limit the impact of the consequences.
Right.
So if I broke down the belief now and I thought, okay, and we call this like explanatory styles and what we are explaining about our beliefs. One, is it always is this something that's permanent?
Yeah.
That lasts across time?
Yeah.
Or is it just all based on you, for example? And when you break it down there, so we take out like last for the whole time. Is it true that it's going to be permanent, that you will have COVID-19 and you'll never be able to recover?
Not necessarily, yeah.
Probably not. Yeah.
And not necessarily. Because then if you manage to go for, you can't have the vaccine, there's no cure at the moment. But if you waited it out for a while, will your body be able to recover?
With the right care, yes.
With the right care, exactly. So you don't necessarily need to get so worried.
Yeah.
But do what you can within your control.
So it's like, I guess, trying to challenge a little bit of like a preconceived notion that subconsciously that you might have, that might be in your brain.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for this one, I think is like breakups. I think that's the a very relatable thing. I think the reason why most people get very upset at a breakup, I mean, other than you lose a very dear friendship or relationship, I think a lot of people, especially when you're younger or the first few breakups you go through,
so painful.
Yeah, it's the worst. I think it's because you think that you will never ever get another boyfriend/girlfriend ever again.
Yeah.
Or you'll never feel the same way ever again.
Yeah.
There's like this preconceived notion of that. And I went through that as well. But the first few relationships, after I break up, I'm like, dude, that's it, man. No girl's ever gonna like me ever again. And fortunately, not been true lah. But like, thankfully, for some reason but like, got people who still like me lah. So I think there's like that, obviously that preconceived notion that it comes out of nowhere. Then you start to ask yourself, then you have to ask yourself why you have that, and whether it's even true in the first place.
Yeah.
So I guess in that sense, you say resilience will come from your own personal perception of the event itself.
Yes.
So, like, what is the line? Okay, as someone, let's say I'm a cynic. Okay, what's the line between being overly positive and being resilient in that sense? Because there's obviously the Gary Vaynerchuk's of the world, right? There's like, oh my god, you lost your job at 30. Dude, you got so much free time now to do your own shit. like get your shit together, dude. You are young, you are 45. What the hell? You have another 45 more years before you die or some shit. So there's that extreme positivity, which I think turns off a lot of people. I'm not saying everyone, but turns off a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that's why I guess most people are a bit cynical. But what is that line then? Like, how would you draw that line?
So what I'm hearing here is how do you not have like to be overly optimistic and almost have that toxic positivity in you?
Yeah.
And here I think you just need to be grounded in reality. And to be grounded in reality, you're really looking for the evidence that can really support the belief that you have.
Right.
So, for example, what's the evidence that if you waited it out for the COVID,
Yeah,
for example, or the evidence that you will never find a girlfriend ever again? What supports that belief? And if you can find counterfacts to it to disprove your belief, then it helps you feel a bit more grounded, but also realize that there is another way around it.
That was incredibly enlightening.
But I mean, I understand that like there's like the evidence side of things.
Yeah.
But I can understand why people will be like, yeah, sure, the evidence points this way or whatever, but humans are like notorious for not being able to view evidence in a objective manner.
Yeah.
Like from psychology we learned that like people will somehow skew the stats to be for them or for their beliefs. Like they will, let's say if I tell you like like 1 every 2 people will get divorced. I don't think it is lah. I think it's lesser than that. But if I tell you that, and then if someone asks you, do you think you will get divorced, then most people will say no because they don't want to. But even though the stats show that there's a high chance you will, So like is there like a way to remain objective? Is there a way to, despite emotions and despite being retrenched, just despite feeling like shit, is there a way to still remain like level-headed in that sense?
Right. That's a tough one, Alistair, actually.
But before we go into this, actually
That's
I like to add on to this because I feel that like the fact that you like for speaking from personal experience, I feel that the very shared experience of the larger population of people, right, is that we jump from step A to step C without considering the B, without ever even thinking of searching for the evidence to either prove or disprove what we are thinking, right? So the fact that you take that step already, right, will more often than not mean that you are ready to accept whatever positivity comes with your new rediscoveries, because a lot of people already don't even take that step. They will just, oh no, I have this, it means I am so sad because of that. You know, they don't even explore the in between. And the fact that if someone already applies that, right, I think that is someone who is already prepared to sort of like toe that line.
It's like, okay, I guess he or she is opening their minds up to an alternative perspective that might lend to more positivity.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
So like these people will not be like, I would say, not overly optimistic, because the fact that they explore this train of thought, right, means they are not, they're prepared to not be overly pessimistic, right? And as a result, any positivity that comes out from that situation will not top them off. You know what I mean? We're not like overflow.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
I get what I mean.
Because they are already rooted in reality.
I get what I mean.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult. I think it's very difficult to be rooted in reality, especially when so many emotions are going through your brain or your heart or whatever you believe in.
And I think on that point, Alistair, what's interesting there is because you already acknowledge that when your emotions are hijacking your thought process, how do you break it down? You're already feeling so emotional. You're asking me to look for facts. I'm just feeling really frustrated at this point in time. And I think in one of your previous episodes, you talked about mindfulness.
So I'm going to
how
to be happy.
In that episode. And this is where mindfulness can come in.
Right.
And in particular, one practice on controlled breathing to almost have that circuit breaker between your emotions and your thoughts. So first you want to stop the emotions from hijacking yourself and going crazy.
And I think that's one of the toughest things that people find themselves having to do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like mindfulness for the people who don't really know is about like being present in the moment, which sounds really, really cliche and like honestly something that Gary Vaynerchuk would say also. But like I think it's something that personally I've helped me a lot with. And I think it's something that we take for granted. Like of course I'm in the present, what are you talking about? Like I can't be in the future or I can't be in the past. But except you can be in the future and you can be in the past in the form of like you worrying about the future. You like looking back at the stupid shit you have done in the past and be like, man, I was such an idiot. And I think everyone has went through that before, especially when like there's about to sleep, then you start thinking about like, man, the time I was in secondary school,
Yeah, man.
That was dumb. And then like I think that's the problem. Like I think most people will get caught up in the failures of the past or the worries in the future.
Yeah.
And that's when they don't live in the moment and allow themselves to, I guess, feel and be without judgment. I think people judge themselves a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, this comes back to what you mentioned about controlled breathing, right? You were saying,
Yeah, exactly.
How do you actually? I mean, controlled breathing sounds simple, but I think it's something that without proper steps, men on the street like me will probably not be able to do.
Yeah. It sounds a bit airy for now. Like how is there like a few steps that people might be able to take?
So, while I'm not a certified mindfulness practitioner myself, but what I understand from controlled breathing is just counting your breath in
Right.
and just focusing on the breath. As much as you have all the emotions that are running through you and the thoughts that are flying in your heads, I think you just need to focus on the breath at that point in time.
Right, and that will help you to sort of step down in terms of your
The emotional response.
emotional energy. Step it down a little bit so you can still make logical decisions.
Exactly. Or to just make sure that you don't have an amygdala hijack,
Right.
where it then grabs hold of everything that you're thinking and doing at that point in time. And just have that step back, just focus on the breath. And then after that, rethink, okay, how can I look at this situation after taking that breath? Instead of responding and reacting straight away to the situation.
I think personally, Prof. Ho was on our show before. He talked about mindfulness. He was my positive psychology professor. And I think a big part of the controlled breathing is also being able to. So what he made us do is imagine your thoughts or your emotions flowing through you and leaving your body, and let it flow through you, and let it leave. Don't cling on to it.
That just sounds hippie as
It sounds hippie as
It
shit.
sounds hippie as shit, right? But that's the thing. I hate to break it to you, but I think it works.
It really does.
Just imagining that idea, right? Sounds like it works. Because funnily enough, to control your thoughts, you just got to use different kind of thoughts, right? I guess.
Yeah. I think it's about learning how to not judge yourself and
Yeah.
not judge your emotions, not judge the things you're feeling, etc., etc. And if you have an Apple Watch, there's a breathe app.
Oh, yeah.
So
Huh, really? Yeah.
there's app that literally times for you,
that's my
breathe
one app,
in, then there's a breathe out function. So if you have Apple Watch, there's a breathe app. I'm pretty sure you know about it. And it does help. I recommend you just shut your eyes for a while, remove everything, let your thoughts pass through you without judgment, and just breathe for a good 2 minutes. I think it's good enough for you. And it's a good way to calm yourself down. But I guess the other side of things is that, if you're feeling something strong, as you should because you're all human, just let yourself feel for a little while. If you're going through a breakup, you're going to cry for a few weeks, that's fine.
Just cry.
Just cry.
Yeah.
I cried for a few weeks, so I think that's fine. We all have our downtime, so I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah.
I would if it goes longer than a month or so, maybe you should probably seek professional help or something.
No, but I do understand that how debilitating it can get when you're having a when we're really overcome by emotion.
Yes.
Right, because there was this. I'm quite lucky because I don't have any pre-existing mental conditions, and I've never really experienced any of these kind of very highly negative episodes, except for this one period in time where I suddenly felt extremely down. And recently only, I believe I told you this, and it was very strange because it was really novel, but it took so much out of me. And I don't want to use the word debilitating loosely, but it was incredibly debilitating, and I've never felt anything worse than that. So, what would be then the better step to take? Is there anything preventative that can be done so that you don't ever call on this? Or should it be I prepare myself in terms of first aid skills so that eventually if it happens and when it happens, I'm ready, which is the way to approach it.
There are protective factors that can prevent you from slipping into that debilitating impact. But maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more around it, and if you don't mind sharing a little bit more, and then maybe we try to break it down from there.
No problem. So it was just this 1 week. I would say maybe 4 days where I was just really down and I could not explain anything besides being really down. I had no energy. I was lethargic to the point whereby I was asking my close friends and loved ones, whether I am actually depressed, because this is something I've never experienced before, and I had a bit of a lost appetite, a little bit of being unable to sleep, not being able to service my social life well. And not being interested in the things that interest me. So I just wanted to do nothing, and even doing nothing felt tiring. And it was I just kept feeling really down. And there were one or two times where I just wanted to break down and cry. And it didn't make sense to me because I like to look inwardly a little bit more logically sometimes, and I can't find anything. So that was when it was really, it was just kind of a low for me, and I didn't know how to explain it.
Right.
So I thought myself that, okay, I can rationalize within myself, especially after I've come back from an episode like that, that these things exist.
Yeah.
You know? And the fact that they exist once, I'm not so much of a fool that I say it won't come again. You know? So in my head, I'm just thinking whether there is, firstly, one way to prevent it from it happening again. It's like, you don't want to have leg cramps from running, right? You do a little bit more jogging.
Yeah.
Right? Or is there or should it be approached I study CPR so that in the event someone has cardiac arrest, I can try to revive them? Which is the right approach? The everyday jogging kind of approach, or the I train for first aid kind of approach? You follow where I'm going?
Yes,
with this,
I
right?
do. And I'd actually recommend both.
Right.
Because even if you protect yourself and live a mentally healthy life, there will be times when you just slip into that.
Yeah.
And what's quite scary, and just hearing how you described it, you don't know what the cause was.
I have absolutely no idea. It was really like a one day this, the next day another.
Yeah.
And that next day lasted for close to a week. And it was just really dark. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you have going for you though is that you were even sensitive enough to pick this up and realize that, I'm actually slipping into this state. What's happening? So I think that sets you apart from others who might not know that they're in that state. So talking maybe about the protective side of things first.
Yes.
One, you look at relationships.
Yeah.
It's who you surround yourself with and being in positive, supportive relationships.
Right.
And that is a very strong protective factor. Having a good social life with your friends, going out, having a loving family. And also when you think about meaning in life and what you're doing with work and stuff like that. And also being able to know that you're having some form of achievements in your work or even in your hobbies, for example. These are protective factors. And I think we talk about it in positive psychology around the PERMA framework. If people know about it.
I mean, I heard of it before, but I can imagine from like a layman person who's like on the street, maybe he's a CBD guy from 9 to 5. Not really 9 to 5 because he has the OT until 10. He might hear that and be like, I hate my job. I don't find much meaning in my life. And my social circle is pretty much gone because I am working like 9 to 10 essentially. And there's nothing, I don't have any of those protective factors. Is there another like tip that I can do like inwardly in myself that will help me like become more resilient, going back to the topic of resilience?
And I think from there, moving beyond the protective factors, and once you're in it already and you realize that you don't have any of these protective factors, it's really re-evaluating these different aspects of your life and trying to make small changes and small tweaks to either how do you improve your relationships, how do you find that meaning, and if it means reconsidering your job or whether it's job crafting, tweaking what you do in your job so that you could then have that sense of fulfillment in it. These are some of the things I would recommend someone to take.
Okay. I mean, I think it's very difficult to take that step, right? I mean, you're not a therapist by profession or anything, but I'm quite sure most therapists will say that like a big part of trying to get well is even wanting to get well in the first place, or even recognizing you have a problem, or like I think most people they have a friction because they hear all these things, and it's not an easy fix.
No.
Right, like a lot of people when they go to a therapist or they have a mental problem or like they go through some nonsense in life and they are feeling down and they go to someone for help, they are expecting an easy fix. But more often than not, the psychologists don't have an easy fix for you. We don't have the answers that you want because there is no such answers. I think that's a very tough part about mental health and like building resilience is that like you just have to put in the work. There's no like glamorous way to get there. And going on that, like, are there any more tips that you will give for building resilience beyond what has been shared so far?
So I think you bring up a good point earlier on because there's no easy way out of a difficult patch. And another concept that's really closely linked to resilience is the concept of self-efficacy. So your ability to make change happen.
Right.
Okay. So it's also your perception of self-efficacy, right?
And it's your perception of self-efficacy. But it also depends on your life experience, right? You've been trying to make all these changes, but nothing has worked in the past. You feel even worse about yourself.
Yeah.
Then you're like, why do I even want to bother trying, right?
Yeah, this is something that I was like worried that I would continue into when I was experiencing that period where it was really dark. It was really frustrating trying to force myself to do the things I enjoy, to try to switch my emotions around, and hoping that when I go to sleep tomorrow it'll be better.
Yeah.
I can see how it might spiral if, let's say, it was not a week. What if it went on for a month?
Yeah.
You know? And I think this is what may frustrate people who never experience, or who is face to face with this more often than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what then is, would be the best way to alleviate or approach this? Because
Wow.
someone can only be that strong for that long. And like, for someone who is well adjusted and feeling okay, it's always easy.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to change and be optimistic. But when the optimism is the one that's being challenged, how do you then work on it?
I think, okay, like drawing from my experience, so for the people who are new, I suffer from anxiety. So I've got a lot of nonsense in my past that I have gone through. So I think personally, the self-efficacy part, I do agree is very important. And I don't think it's a just yourself thing.
Yeah.
It's also the people around you. So the people who are around you, whether they support you, whether they believe you, whether they let you do the things that you do, or like let you I guess mess up in a sense, because even though the parents who it's a bit of a sidetrack, but the parents who do everything for their child,
Right.
and because of that, when they grow up, the child thinks that they can never do anything by themselves. I think it goes a bit into self-efficacy. I think it takes a little bit of a hit. So I think you surround yourself with people who, I guess, let you understand that you are strong, but and push you to do better and push you to go out and try to get yourself out of the comfort zone. But at the same time, when you are like feeling down, they are your safety net. I think it's important to get this type of people instead of the people who, like, I guess, give in to your every need. Who, when you have some shit going on, then you're like, okay, here, I take care of you.
Yeah.
I 100% take care of you. Just like keep quiet, lay in bed. Okay, everything I come to you. I think there needs to be that person there to push you a little bit, and it's only if you feel that they are like there for you as a safety net lah. I think that's what helped me a lot, because my friends like John, like Adria, like Kezia, and my family has never once, like, I guess, spoon fed me through that experience. It was like mostly like, yeah, you got anxiety, cool. Like, if you're feeling shit, come to me. But in the meantime, like, John's my supervisor, you have a job. You have to do a video. And as much as it sounds like it's very cutthroat, it does, I guess, gives me a bit of sense of like, oh, I can do it, of self-efficacy. So I guess it's the people you surround yourself with as well. But for the people who, but beyond that, like, actually, I'm actually quite curious how to like increase your own self-efficacy by yourself. Like, is this just like a mind trick you have to play on yourself, like a Jedi mind trick? Or is there like a certain like a perspective change that you have to adopt?
Oh, I wish I could give you like this Jedi mind trick around self-efficacy, but I don't have anything around that. However, when it comes to self-efficacy, it's really about having those small wins.
Yeah.
And when you work with coaches or life coaches, career coaches, it's always about giving you that small challenge, that baby step that you can take, and then you start building on that. So around self-efficacy, it's giving yourself small tasks that you can accomplish for yourself. And for the friends around you, I think you brought up a great point where you let them struggle a little so that they gain that sense of self-efficacy instead of swooping in to help at every point of the way.
I think that's an interesting point, but let's take a really quick camera break.
Oh, yes.
Sony, man, send us new cameras. But thank you guys so much for listening so far. We'll catch you back after the camera break.
Yeah, camera break real quick. And we are back.
We are back. And yes, we're talking a little bit about self-efficacy. I think it was very interesting, and I think I personally think it's one of the biggest thing, because you can know that you have a problem, you can know the things to do, but if you yourself don't believe that it will help you, or if you yourself don't believe that you'll be able to get through it using the steps, then it's very difficult lah. So that's why I said, I think doing small steps and trying to get the small wins in life can help you build that confidence a little bit.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you have one more tip for us.
Yes, so we were talking about the ABC model of resilience,
Yes.
and then we talked about disputing your belief, right? Trying to find the evidence against it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the D. So now we've got the ABCDs of resilience. There's one more. Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's the last D. Oh.
I know, I just threw it in.
Oh, you just threw it in?
I just threw it.
Hey,
No, the
you heard
D.
it here first. It's a new theory by by the positive psychologist Marc.
Yeah, A, B, C, D. I'm going to add in one more E. Everyone.
Everyone. Yes, what's the D stand for?
No, so it's actually a known model. So there's the ABCDs. One was the disputing,
Okay,
the
okay,
belief,
okay.
right? You
Yes,
dispute,
yes.
you find other evidence. But another way, but not such a long-term solution, could help you in that moment would be to distract yourself away from the current emotions that you're going through.
Okay.
Like, just forget about it for a while, go for a cruise, a staycation.
Go for a long walk.
Go for a long walk, have your tub of ice cream, just really eat it and enjoy that old tub of Ben and Jerry's. But yes.
Yeah.
it's
I mean, is there something rumbling now? Am I crazy?
Yeah, airplane flight plus. So you gotta hear it right. Someone's having a more exciting life than us, lah.
They're having a great time now. But yes, thank you for distracting me.
Yeah.
Distracting. I think when we heard it before we rolled the cameras, I think it was very interesting because like we were talking a little bit about it before. We talked about active rest. We talked about the fact that you can't just like, mindlessly scroll through TikTok or scroll through Netflix or whatever and just like assume that will help you, right? I mean, we try to say like, okay, you want to do something that's a little bit more active, like maybe go out, walk a bit, I guess, or like even if you're watching YouTube, like for me, I watch YouTube, but I keep constantly thinking about like, wow, this YouTube video did well. How am I going to help with my own YouTube channel? Or there's like at least the active process, so it's not a mindless thing. I think that goes a bit into like well-being.
Yeah.
Like trying to like get as much well-being as possible. So I mean, wait, do you what's your personal distraction method?
Okay, so personally, I feel that aside from using your devices, right, with digital stuff, I like to hike.
Yeah.
I like to fiddle with my cameras and with like my film and stuff like that. And I tell myself to find time, right, to do these things with no objective in mind. And that is sort of like my way to distract myself.
Yeah.
But although I do find that that's a habit that is hard to keep, to upkeep because the daily grind and everything, which I guess is not the best because you technically don't have enough time to sort of like fix yourself in that way.
Yeah.
But I would say that it definitely has helped immensely whenever I get to go for hikes. And I really shut off, like, because one of the things that I feel is like a heavy requirement for me, which are expectations put on me, is that like even when I'm not doing my work, there are certain things that I need to uphold. I need to I'm a notoriously bad texter.
Yes.
And Lester will know this.
Yep.
And
that's why I took so long to get back to you.
No, but
I'm so
like,
sorry.
but like society has like this has placed this value on you that like you must become a good texter. Even though most of the time I find that like moving away from not just texting makes me move away from everything on my phone.
yeah.
And as a result, I move away from my devices and I get to be myself.
Yes.
Right? And this is something that I've not been able to properly reconcile with people. And one of the hardest persons to reconcile this with sometimes is my girlfriend. When we have a relationship, there's the expectation to keep up communications and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
So I did, recently set up certain boundaries with her and tell her that there are some days where I really just want to do nothing. And then we can call each other, we can just leave it on call and then we just do nothing and let that be our day to sort of like recover. Because it can get overwhelming sometimes. You don't realize, these actions might not mean much to you, but a person like me may accidentally put the extra value because I think a little bit too much about it. Or I put too much thought into that particular activity when I want to just hike for 3 hours and disappear, for example. Right? And that is something that I've been trying to actively incorporate into my life. It could be a few hours of just like, we're on a call, we're connected, but we're doing our own thing. I'm maybe playing my games, or I'm reading my book, or I'm drawing on my iPad, that kind of thing. Something that is essentially nothing, doing nothing, and that nothing has no purpose. Yeah.
I think it goes also very nicely into like coping strategies that positive psychology does emphasize quite a bit on. So there's like what we like to call the emotion focused coping strategy, which is like people who write journals like me, write a lot of stuff or like try to or confide in friends. That's the emotion focused. Then there's the problem focused, which is the a bit more logical side of things. Like I have this problem, I don't have money to buy lunch tomorrow. I go and solve the problem. I go and withdraw ATM or find someone to give me money or something. So that's the problem focus. But I think there's also the one side which is the just run away from it, like the ignore the problem, and they don't exactly address the problem. And it has shown that generally you probably shouldn't be doing that because it probably causes more harm than good in the long run. But it does have its benefits. They have found that it has benefits when it comes to problems that are unavoidable and they are very traumatic.
Right.
Things like sudden death of a family member.
All right.
Things like what else can happen that's traumatic? I don't remember. Like sudden and traumatic.
Loss of limb.
Sure. Loss of limb.
Accident or
your
whatever.
girlfriend suddenly break up with you. Your girlfriend.
Or you suddenly lose a lot of money in an investment.
Yes. And they have found that if you at first just like ignore it for a while, right, it might actually do you some good. You have to come back to it eventually and do that problem solving and that problem focus or emotion focused eventually somehow. But it might be good to ignore and try to distract yourself and try to let yourself do other things as well.
Right.
And that's what I did when I was going through a breakup as well. I just focused on IMO. I focused on schoolwork.
Yeah.
And I just like zero in like every day just one by one. And eventually like 1 or 2 weeks later when I'm able to like I guess look at the situation a bit more calmly, then I'm like okay, I obviously talk more to friends. I try to confide a little bit and think about and reflect a little bit about the situation, and that's how I got over the whole problem in the first place. But I didn't start off with me going like being super logical and like, okay, I got no girlfriend now, and then like start and like be a robot because we're all not robots.
Yeah.
So I think you have to sometimes let yourself be distracted a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a good stepping stone to trying to eventually lead up to a point where you have enough energy to solve the problem like emotionally or logically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the one last point before we like kind of wrap it up is I think an interesting thing that I've learned in health psychology, which is like the link between mental health and physical health. I think a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, but they think of it as like two separate things, right?
Yeah.
Like most people you have talked to will think of it as two separate things, but I also personally did think of it as two separate things until recently. I only remember, okay, I don't remember much from health psychology, I'm so sorry. But like, not because the prof was bad, because I am a bad student. I got B+, I think. But like, I think I remember one in particular, one experiment. They gave a blister wound. You can go and Google what blister wound means. They gave a blister wound to, I think, dentistry students. And then when they were having exams, some of them were having exams, some of them weren't. And they actually found that the people who were having exams and rated themselves as higher stress took longer time to heal. The wounds took longer time to heal. And it's because of like the cortisol levels, because of all the other physical things that happen when you're stressed. So cortisol is basically this hormone that is a stress hormone, right? Is there another way to describe it other than stress hormone?
That's accurate. That's a stress hormone.
It's just a stress hormone that increases when you're stressed. And it causes a lot of issues like inflammation. That's why there are like other health problems that will come from cortisol, like or increased cortisol like exposure. And it also impedes like wound healing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just quite interesting because I mean most people don't think that they're related, but actually if you're more stressed, you're probably going to fall sick more. And it's not just like just something in your head. It really is a physical thing because there's like an actual hormone for it. Just thought it would be something interesting. So do know that like while you're taking care of your physical health, go and exercise, go and eat well, which also plays into mental health. You have to take care of your mental health as well, using the tips that we have shared so far. And with that, are there any like concluding thoughts you have, John or Mark? You want to start first?
Yeah, Mark, tell us a little bit more first.
Concluding thoughts. I think for the bookworms amongst your viewers, I recommend 2 books. One's by Karen Rivich on the resilience factor.
Okay.
And that talks a lot about some of these mechanisms or tools that they can use to improve their resilience. The second book is by Martin Seligman, Learn Optimism.
Okay.
So these are 2 books that...
Oh my god, learn optimism. I remember that word. Oh my goodness, I'm like starting to unlock memories that I never had. Learn optimism, yes, I think that's an important part of like life. Learning how to be optimistic despite the problems.
Yeah.
Which we actually said before, like it's a fine line between like being toxically positive and optimistic. And I think there's a line that you kind of have to find yourself.
Yeah.
And through like, I guess, tough times and trying to calibrate your own mental well-being. For you, what's your takeaway from this?
I think my main takeaway would be actually something from the very start where we talk about the definition of resilience, about how it's it's basically what I can suss out from it would be like overcoming adversity and coming back stronger from that experience, right? I think what resonated with me the most is the fact that like we have to understand that as people, adversity is something that we can never ever avoid. It is something that will come in whatever shape or form that you have, right? But you must be well equipped enough in order to overcome this, and that's where this whole resilience thing is very important. And if you practice things that build your resilience, right, with the objective of actually overcoming that kind of adversity, I think that is the healthiest way to sort of approach any difficulty that you may encounter. And I also do like the earlier point where we mentioned about the framework ABC, right, where we forget about our beliefs, right, and I think it resonated with me because like it was I want to call it a very Socratic kind of method, because Socrates was someone that taught you to ask questions until you cannot ask anymore, right?
Yeah.
In fact, the Socratic method is a method that is still employed today, right? And I think that is something that we can definitely try to apply to our mental health when we encounter any issues that require us to be resilient. Because when you ask enough questions and truly break it down to the point where you cannot break it down anymore, you will probably find the actionable steps that you can take. And when you found those actionable steps, right, that will be easier for you to rationalize the feeling and not be overwhelmed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And I mean, going back to the whole reason why we're here, just us.space. And I think, I mean, we have covered a very small part about well-being.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about well-being, it's going to be a 13 weeks long course as I went through. It's a 13 weeks mod.
Nice.
And I had to read a lot of textbook. Most textbook that I've ever written in my life.
Ain't nobody got time.
You ain't reading those textbooks, I tell you right now. And you really shouldn't, because it's long. But I think this is a very important part of resilience and important part of well-being. And the reason why is because I chose resilience because it's something that everyone can understand. Like, no matter whether you're mentally ill or not, you'll be able to understand resilience is something that you need.
Yeah.
Eventually, because everyone goes through tough times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just wanted to reiterate the main point that like is for everyone. Mental health is for everyone. Resilience is for everyone. Mental well-being is for everyone. And if you, no matter whether or not you feel like you are emotionally stable or not, or if you are seeking a therapist or not, I really recommend going to just us.space, where you can go through like a life of a person through a camera. And I don't think it's a real story, but it's still something that I related to a lot as someone that suffered from mental health issues.
Yeah.
And the resources, I think, is that's where like the real gold is at. Like looking at how they break down her emotions, and that might actually give you some answers to some things that you might be feeling as well. Or even the resources like how to be happy or well-being or resilience and all that stuff is one-stop shop. So you don't have to Google search how to be happy anymore. Suddenly, they have done it for you. They have curated it for you. You can just go in once and for all and answer some questions. Or if you need help, there's also resources, helplines, chats, whatever over there. So definitely go and check them out. Just us.space. I'm not being sponsored. I actually really like that stuff.
Yeah, I have not been there. So you can come and explore it with me. The links also, we'll leave it in the description box below.
Yes.
So it's easier for you, but you've heard it here twice. At the start and at the end. So cannot say we never say.
Yes. And with that, thank you so much for joining today's episode. I hope you had a good time.
Yes, I did. It was lots of fun spending it with you.
Perfect.
And with that, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Stay safe and see you guys next week.
Yeah, but before I want to just one thing I've realized we forgot to plug would be like, besides following us on Instagram, please follow our Telegram chat.
Oh my god, we forgot the Telegram,
our
guys.
links below. Okay, we have Telegram chats, we have Telegram channels. You can click and you can engage with us directly. If you got any suggestions about what you want us to talk about next week or more, we always welcome you to discuss with us in our Telegram chat.
We have also very exciting collabs that are going to be do you know that we had like a guest for every single episode for like a very long time now?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a while since it's just the two of us. Honestly, I prefer it that way, but you know what? It's fine. I think look forward to some very interesting guests.
Yeah.
And with that, see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.